Can you talk about the opportunities that are available now that weren't available to authors previously?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now for writers and other kinds of artists, like almost any sort of creative person, I think there's more opportunity now than there's ever been. I mean, if you really think about it. Now, I think a lot of people are sort of used to kind of the traditional way where they're putting out their stuff and trying to sell it, and that is always going to be difficult. But in terms of getting your material into people's hands, I mean, as a writer, you know, the biggest company on earth, Amazon, has enabled you to publish your books with them, and you have a potential audience of millions of people. Wattpad, lets you publish little short stories and things and little snippets of things, and some of those have been optioned and turned into movies. YouTube, TikTok, all those, you can put out short films, you can put out little sketches. I mean, I think there's constantly stories in the news about people who have made little shorts on YouTube that end up getting development deals and things. So, I mean, the tools are there, I mean, you just have to put yourself out there. I think that's the hardest part, is like just deciding I'm going to put myself out there. I mean, honestly, like I watch these YouTubers and I am blown away like by how much work they must put in. I mean, these, the successful ones produce content like on a daily basis, or a weekly basis. And, there's implications that are negative to that, but in terms of the hard work, that they're doing, I think it's pretty impressive. Like, and so I think if you really want to get your stuff out there, like there are so many avenues to do it now, like more than ever in history. Oh, and sorry, also, I think I should add too that on the business side of things, not only can you get your stuff out there, but platforms like Facebook, you can run marketing and campaigns and advertise and actually build audiences. I mean, the idea 20 years ago, the idea that you could like build an audience of like 100,000 people that like similar authors to you and target advertisements to a product you have to those people, that would be unheard of. And now anyone can do that. You don't have to be a business or a company. So I mean, again, like there's so many tools that are out there to create your content, put your content out there, and build an audience for it.
What's the most stressful part of being a professional that you had no clue until you started?
I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think the imposter syndrome, like that feeling that, it's not as good as before, it's not good enough. I think that is I think I just thought like, okay, well, if I can get through my first book, then everything else will be easier, And actually, I heard a lot of authors say that too, like, oh, the first book's the hardest. And in many ways, that's true. Like in the terms of like the hours you put into it and learning the craft and just what it takes to produce a book when you've never done it before, it is very difficult. But I think what I found surprisingly hard, like I said, was kind of coping with that imposter syndrome afterwards. Like, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am, or maybe all these people who like it, they're wrong, or they're not seeing all the problems with it, or maybe I just can't do it again, like that is definitely there. And I mean, I think it's just your brain like psyching yourself out, but it was a lot more prevalent than I thought it would be.
So when you were writing the first novel or the novella, maybe there was a little more sense of, wow, this is going great, before you knew the response. And then once you get a positive response, sounds like it's been mostly positive, then you start doubting yourself?
Yeah, it's weird, right? You would think, I think for the first book, it's more like, hey, can you get this done? It's like, I've never written a book before, so automatically, if I can finish a novel, that's a victory, And I finished it, so that's a huge victory for me. Like, I was super stoked when I finished it. I didn't care if it was good or not. I was just like, wow, I finished a book, And like you said, the response was largely positive, and I guess I thought I never would have thought that you would feel like worried when you're getting a largely positive response. But I did find that when I went on to the second book, I'm like, oh man, like what if I let these people down? Like what if all the people who loved the first one and then now they don't like this one and I let them down? Like I felt that really strongly. And then again on the third one and the fourth one and every book I've ever written, like there's that kind of doubt in the back of your head. I think it's just inherent. If you care about what you're doing, I think it's inherent in the creative process. And you just have to learn to kind of not listen to that voice. I think it's always going to be there. You just have to silence it until you get to the editing. And then that's where I think that can actually be useful, where you could say, is this as good as it can be? Maybe if I tighten this dialogue, maybe I need to add a scene that explains this more. That's where I think the doubt can help. But when you're just writing, I think you need to kind of ignore that and just soldier on.
And there's so many books on getting to a certain point, but there's not really a lot of books.
Yeah, there's not a lot of like self-help books for the successful author, right? Like it's like boo-hoo.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, it's true. I didn't. But what was funny was all the writers that said, "Oh, the first book is the hardest." Later on, then they're like, "Oh yeah, I feel that way too." Like I think a lot of people. Either maybe it's a kindness, they don't want to tell you, like they just want you to think like, oh, it'll be easier once you finish this book. They don't want to let you know, like, oh no, it's just going to get harder and harder like, each time.
Well, and I'm a broken record with this one, but I'll say it again. Julia Cameron has this talk about, sort of blocked writers, or it's much easier to have people like you and gain sympathy when you're doubting yourself, but people are fearful of someone who's confident and doing well, because then they have to look at themselves and say, why am I not there?
Right.
And then you push people away. So it's an interesting thing where you don't think you have to worry about that, but then, it's much more intimidating to be someone who's confident and is doing well, and people like your work, than someone who's, and they're insecure, and then everybody wants to gravitate to help you.
Yeah, it's a different set of challenges, but I think it kind of goes back to like we were saying, like it's not like you're going to do something and all of a sudden your whole life is easy street. It's like certain things might be easier, but other things might be harder.
How did your first book hit #1 on Amazon?
So the way the sales kind of went for me was I released Devil's Due first, and I didn't really care how it did. And I was giving it away for free anyway. I did put it up on Amazon as well, but my real point of that book was to start building an audience, for the next one. And so then when I launched Tokyo Black, which was the first novel, it did well, but not like I can live off of this well. But I was happy because it was my first book and it did well. I mean, it certainly made, real money that was useful. And more importantly, people really liked it. The second novel, Red Phoenix, that was the one that really took off, like where, and I couldn't tell you why. I mean, people have asked me, I think part of it was that kind of slow process of building the audience with each book. And I did, like I said, I was running ads and I'd started to learn about marketing, and I was using Facebook and other, promotion sites for books and things. And I was another, I was working at the time, and another advantage of working while you're writing is you do have more capital to invest, into what you're doing. And I was able to invest a fair amount into advertising. But that book, Red Phoenix, for whatever reason, just skyrocketed. And I remember one day I was post-supervising on a TV show and a movie simultaneously. I was freelance, so sometimes I would work multiple jobs. And I left my house and I looked at my sales numbers like, oh, they're looking pretty good today. And I kind of figured that would sort of peak, or it would go a little bit higher. And then I got to work, and an hour later I looked again and it was like way higher, and I left and I was like, whoa. And then over the course of that week, I was making more money off the book than both of those post-souping jobs combined. And I was like, oh, wow. And that was when I was like, okay, I could really do this,
How cool.
So that was sort of the trajectory it took.
Was that a fantastic feeling, or was that scary in the sense that, is this going to last?
It was, I guess because I didn't expect it to last. So, because I hadn't experienced that yet, So to me, I was like, okay, well, this must be a crazy day, But then the next day it was just as high, and the next day it was just as high. But I will say that every author who goes through those spikes, I think, will tell you that I think the more important thing to realize is eventually they don't last. It's not sustainable to do that forever. I couldn't say why it spiked the way it did, but I do think because I had not gone through that experience before, I kind of thought, oh, this is the way it will always be. After like a month of it being like that, I was like, I guess this is the way it is, but it's not. The next book did really well, but not that well. You will have spikes and ups and downs and good years and bad years. So again, that's why I say it's really important to kind of have a plan and to look at it long haul. Don't when you do have a spike like that, it's great. Like, be happy, embrace it, but don't like then build your whole career plan off of that, because it's just inevitable that, readers come, readers go, different genres are hot. Maybe China was big in the news when I launched that book or something. I don't know. But, for whatever reason, that one probably to this day, I think did the best out of all of them.
Red Phoenix?
Yeah, Red Phoenix.
Interesting. And what year?
And I don't think a lot of people are like, oh, well, do you think that's your best book? And although it is actually my personal favorite, I don't think that's why. Because most people buying it, they haven't read it yet, so they're just going off of the reviews, and all of the books have good reviews. So I think I think that I'm very happy for the success it had. It really helped my life out a lot, obviously. But I think it's more important to sort of build a consistent, career. It's something that you can sustain.
Did it have more reviews?
No. The books tend to have, the way the reviews tend to go is obviously the longer a book's been out, the more reviews it has. So I think Tokyo Black has the most reviews of all of them, followed by Red Phoenix, followed by Fire and Forget, which is book number 3. The Devil's Due, which is the novella, doesn't have as many, but I think that's because a lot of it gets given away, for free, so those people can't review it on Amazon because they didn't buy it.